A valuable source of weather information that gardeners across Oklahoma can take advantage of is the Mesonet. So we're here with Al Sutherland. How you doing, Al?
Hello, Steve.
Al is a horticulture extension specialist and also a member of the Mesonet Steering Committee. And Al's going to tell us a little bit about what exactly the Mesonet is.
It's great to be able to go through that for your listeners. The Mesonet is a system of towers that we have across the state. We have one behind us here. There's 115 across the state. There's one in at least every county. And then the project is unique in that it's OSU working with OU hand in hand. So the steering committee that we have is composed of half OSU folks and half folks with OU affiliates.
Well, that's interesting. What exactly does the stations measure when it comes to data?
Well, the stations measure quite a few things. We get wind speed, and we get that at up high at 30 feet, and then we also come down and pick it up at about 6 feet. Down low, you get air temperatures at those two different heights. We measure relative humidity, solar radiation. There's a rain gauge off over behind the tower.
Okay.
And then on this bare spot, we've got soil temperatures.
Okay.
And we have those both under bare soil and also under sod.
Okay, so the fields that have been plowed don't have anything growing, we can get that soil temperature, and we can also get the temperature just under our grass.
That's correct.
How deep are those measurements taken?
The soil temperatures are at 2 inches, 4 inches, and then 12 inches. The 2 and 4 are under bare soil and sod. The 12 inch is just under the bare soil.
Okay. Well, Al, you know, a lot of times on the news we hear different weather measurements taken a lot at airports across the state. So how are those measurements different than the Mesonet data collections?
Well, the National Weather Service for decades has had weather reporting at a number of different sites. In Oklahoma, they have 11 sites that are manned. Of course, in the old days, everything was written down on paper and sent in, and then telephone came along, and people would take those measurements and call those in. And now those sites are also automated. The big difference between the National Weather Service sites and the Mesonet sites is really the concentration of towers. They have 11. The Mesonet has 115 towers. And then they report their data every hour. The Mesonet stations are collecting data every 5 minutes and then transferring that to the computers every 15 minutes.
That's quite a difference.
Yeah, the detail, there's a lot more detail in the Mesonet system, and it tells us a lot more about what's going on across the whole state of Oklahoma.
Okay, so that's going to be a lot more accurate.
They're both accurate.
Okay.
So I don't want to say one's more accurate, but it's really more concentrated. The Mesonet data is going to be more timely. So we talk about the Mesonet towers as being real-time data weather collection system.
Okay. Well, Al, I don't see any power lines or source of power out here, so what runs this equipment out here?
Well, over on the small tower with the two blue panels, those are solar collectors, and what they're doing is collecting radiation and then turning that into a charge for a battery. The station is all run off the solar panels and the battery. The battery can keep it going for up to 2 weeks if we get into real cloudy weather. And there's also a data logger that will log that data, so if the transmitter goes down for sending the data, somebody can actually physically come out and still collect the data so that no data is lost. The system's been up and running since 1994, and virtually 99.999% of the data has gotten through and been recorded since then.
Well, that's incredible, and I like the idea that it's a self-sufficient station. It takes care of itself. So. Well, hey, how about we go in and look at some of the lab equipment, and maybe we can figure out just how fast this wind is blowing.
Okay, sounds good.
So Al, we can see by this monitor that those gusty winds were out of the south at 23 miles an hour and gusting up to 32 miles an hour. So
Yeah, we picked today that it was blowing us around quite a bit.
yeah, that's pretty stiff.
It was. Well, Steve, what I wanted to do is bring you up here to the Calibration Lab. Now, this is on the OU campus in the Sarkey Energy Center, and it's affiliated with the Oklahoma Climatological Survey. So that's really the state agency that operates the Oklahoma Mesonet in cooperation with OU, the School of Meteorology, and also OSU, within Extension and within the OSU Biosystems and Ag Engineering Department.
Okay, so lots of people involved.
Lots of people involved, lots of affiliations. So one of the things that they do at the lab, of course, is they will take instruments that we saw out on the tower, like this wind vane propeller here that picks up wind speed and also monitors wind direction. They will set this up in the lab and make sure that these instruments are calibrated and provide accurate data.
Okay, yeah, we saw this out there on the top of the tower, just kind of going crazy a little bit earlier. But all sorts of instruments in here.
There's quite a few instruments. There's some temperature instruments, also relative humidity, a number of instruments. All of those are brought in on a regular basis and calibrated. Plus the data has quality assurance done to it so that if that data is out of kilter, doesn't show what it should, it's tagged, and there's technicians that will go out and pick that up.
Okay, so they kind of watch, and if they get something that's reading way off the scale like it should be, they'll know there's a problem and get it taken care of pretty quick.
That's correct, and there are 4 technicians that cover the whole state.
Okay. Well, there's an interesting instrument right back here.
Yeah, this is our rain gauge, and let me squeeze over here. We can take this off.
That was the thing we saw out in the field that was collecting all the rainfall.
It collects the rainfall, and what that does is the upper funnel puts that down into a spot where it'll collect in, and the tip bucket will tip whenever it picks up 1/100th of an inch of rain. Okay. And then it can tip to the other side for the next, and so on. If we have a weather event, and it can tip as quickly as the rain is falling.
Okay. So whenever it hits these little knobs here, it records, I guess, the amount of rainfall?
It'll record 1/100th of an inch of rain. So if we put water back in here, when that tip bucket falls, that was 1/100th
okay.
Of an inch of rain that fell.
All right. So after 24-hour period, we know how many inches of rain we got that day.
Yeah, but with the Mesonet system, we're actually, that data coming in every 15 minutes, we know every 15 minutes what happened during the last 15-minute period.
Oh, okay, how much rain you've gotten up to that point?
How much rain we've gotten, and that's part of the whole real-time system that we have available to us.
Okay, so can you show me now what happens to all that data once it's recorded?
Sure, let's go on down to the operations lab and we'll take a look at that.
Okay.
Well, Steve, this is the Oklahoma Mesonet Operations Center, and this is where all of the data comes in from the network across the state, goes through the law enforcement agencies from the towers, and then is fed over to the computers that are positioned here. That raw data will then be put into actual Mesonet products that we see online.
Okay. So the data is collected from the towers, and it goes from there to the law enforcement agencies,
yes,
and then to here, and they package it into the products.
Into the products that we actually see on the internet.
Okay, well, let's take a look at some of those.
Okay, sounds good.
Well, we've hooked up to a computer and now we're online, and Al is going to take control of the mouse and click around here and show us some of the features.
Okay, Steve, let's do that. And one of the first things that we would go to is a current map of the site. And this would give us a new window. What we're looking at here is a statewide view for 12/15 on the 13th, and it's now 12:50. So we do run a little bit behind getting all the data through the system, but it's updated every 15 minutes. You can see that we have a wind vane. Here's one from out west where the wind is averaging 10 miles per hour. And as we come closer over to Fort Cobb area, you can see that the wind is running at 25.
It's got a little bit bigger flag, I guess, there.
It's got two long flags and one short. So
okay.
That's 2 10s and 1 5, and we add all those up together to come to a 25 mile per hour average wind for the last 15 minutes. And then if there's gusts that go over that, and we can move up here and take a look at the Hinton site, we see a G30, which means that we have a gust of 30 miles per hour. Let's take a look at a couple of the other products. One of the things we can do is come and look at the data in color-filled maps. So we just run down here to soil temperature. This is the temperature under sod at 4 inches. And you can see this red area down here in the central southern part of the state. And what's that's showing is we're getting temperatures there of up close to 54 degrees. And that means that crabgrass seeds would be starting to germinate today in that area. As we move north of that area and we get back into temperatures below 50 degrees, the crabgrass is not going to be germinating because it's when it gets into the mid-50s that it starts. We can also take a look at these in terms of color-filled animations, and I like to use this a lot when I'm getting ready to go out into the yard and do something. And we can advance through every 15 minutes, and what that will do is show us how the winds are changing over the last 3-hour period. So it's really good when a front comes into the state, we can actually monitor how quickly that's moving through. And whatever location I'm at in the state, I can get online and take a look and see how soon a storm front might get to me. Maybe I've got a couple hours where I can get out and do some yard work. Maybe I've only got a half hour, so it'll make a big difference as to what I might do. This is also really helpful in terms of spraying, because if I get everything mixed up and get it in the tank and then run out and all of a sudden there's a big wind shift, I might have troubles with drift. So it's something that we can take a look at that can really help us.
Okay.
There's another product in here that I think would be real helpful, and that's under these NGMOS forecasts. We went to the public safety site, and now we'll click here, and let's just go to text forecasts. What this allows us to do, and I'm going to put this into a new window where we can see it a little easier, this allows us to click on any spot in the state. And what I'm going to do right now is just click on Oklahoma City, and this brings up a text forecast, which is a little overwhelming when we first look at it, but as you go through here, you can see that we've got temperatures, we've got relative humidity, wind direction, wind speed, and then we get way down here, you can see amount of precipitation, chance of precipitation, and even precipitation type. What this does is it takes a forecast and puts it into real precise numbers for every 3-hour period. So we can go and look at this and see if we're going to have a wind change. And if we look down here, we'll see that as we go from March 14th to the 15th, right about midnight, we're going to have a wind shift from out of the south to the north. The wind speed is going to be southerly at average about 16, and then they're predicting that it'll be 18, upwards of 19, so we'll shift to maybe close to 20 miles per hour. And we can get these predicted out for 60-hour periods any day of the week. So it's very, very handy. Here we can take a look at that in more of a map form, and you can see how at 12 a.m. on the 15th where that wind's going to be coming out of. We can see here in the southeastern part of the state, the winds are out of the south, but they're predicting that winds will shift and come out of the north.
Okay, so a complete turnaround.
Complete turnaround, and people can go and get this. This is an actual forecast.
Yeah, as we're getting ready to do something in the garden, I can see this would be a wonderful tool that the gardeners in Oklahoma can take advantage of. Well, Al, I certainly appreciate you showing this to us, and also the other folks we talked to today. Really appreciate their help also.
Yeah, we had help from James Kilby, who is systems manager. We also had Jared Bostic, who is involved with the setting up the systems data, and then Mike Wolfenbarger allowed us to sit down at his computer and take over his office. So we appreciate all of those folks.
Okay, well, thank you all very much.